Mr. Kanuha, Council Member Kanuha, and Ms. Eoff, Mr. Yoshimoto, and Mr. Onishi, Ms. Willie, Ms. Poindexter, and I'm Brenda Ford. I'm the chair of the committee. This is the Public Safety and Mass Transit Committee reconvening regarding Bill 79. I'm going to read you some rules. This is an abbreviated set of rules, okay? So bear with me, please. Every person at every site will be treated with respect and courtesy. No one is allowed to make negative verbal comments regarding any council member or anybody in the audience, and that's it. So no comments like that. No applause, no yelling, cheering, booing, hissing, or signs are allowed at any time inside the council chambers or near the actual doors of the council chamber, here or at any other site. There'll be no obscenity allowed at any time. I'll try hard to be good. Okay. Good. No one is permitted forward of the council, the testifiers table here, but there's no public testimony today because this is a reconvening of a recessed meeting. No person with a camera is allowed forward of the table, your side of the table. Now, sometimes we have audio and visual problems, and today it fortunately is not Ka'u. We have a problem over in Kona. So we're doing streaming through a computer and on a speaker. And so what's happening is the time delay is really long. It's like 5 seconds or more. So so we're not taking public testimony from any place, so that shouldn't be a problem. And I hope no one is going to be asking anyone to come forward to talk from Kona, because if we need someone in Kona to talk to the council, I've got to call a recess. We got to set up a whole different system in order to get them back up talking to us. So council members, please bear with us. If we lose a site completely outside of this location, then we're going to continue with this meeting because we have all council members here and we're agendized for the meeting with everybody here. So if we lose someone, the staff will attempt to get them back up on the air, but if we can't, we're continuing to go forward. The council will be taking breaks approximately every 90 minutes if this thing goes very long. And I'll do my best to conclude by 6 o'clock. I don't know that the discussion here is going to take that long, but I'll do that. So please be fair to everyone, and we're going to go forward from here. Now, if anyone is parked out here in Hilo and put money in your meter, it might need to be fed again. So you might want to remember that. I think it's a 2-hour meter, and so you might need to keep feeding it every once in a while. Okay. We are now going to start the committee discussion, and let me get a piece of paper. Who would like to have a discussion at this point? I'm going to start with Margaret. It's her beer. God, we're all going to need them by the end of the day. Okay, Margaret and anyone? Okay, let's start with you and just keep going.
Okay. I want to be clear that my primary goal here is basically Malama Aina, that dealing with the issue of that GMO plants, organisms contaminate other person's property where they're unwanted, and how to deal with that, and that coexistence might sound like a great idea, but wherever it's been attempted, it has failed. So they have not been able to work out. Go talk to your neighbor. Go work out 5 miles away, 10 miles away. It has not worked. Now, each crop, there are crops that are different. Papaya it's easier to set up boundaries and deal with that, and it's not as if like with corn or wheat. But even with papayas, here we have those who are attempting to do organic papayas. They need to be certified. They have to go check how many. There are like 12 different potential tests that have to be done, and each time they don't know may not know which one of those different reagents or tests that they need to do. They pay $500 a year to maintain certified, and yet they they're always concerned every time there's an inspector that their crop be found to have been contaminated. And Malama Aina, I just want to say, we all want the best for this island, and my focus is on this island and home rule, and that we make our decisions, whether it's exactly what I like or whether it's not, that we're here and that we do have the authority to make these decisions. We almost did not. If SB 727 had passed, our authority to be here today would have been undermined. We would have. It was, basically, as one of the GMO representatives said, the local governments, people interfere with their policies and their goals. And they have the right to pursue their goals, but we have the right to have our own authority and chart our own future. So I want to say appreciation to everyone that submitted testimony. I think we had 594 people sign up. Out of those, 273 spoke at the hearings. I have finally almost finished reading through, these are all in support of the bill, not with any attachment. These are opposed. In addition, we each got many emails individually, so there was a great deal. There's just extraordinary knowledge. I think people should realize what an incredible place, incredible people we have here. So I'm trying to, we do have a problem. I think anyone that doesn't see that there's an issue here has got to be blind to what's going on around the world or on the other islands, and that it's important that we deal with it now. If we don't, we will be giving up our authority, abdicating, and the state legislature will most certainly make a decision what it wants for this island. We are really the only island, the only county left where the biotech companies are not so well established that if we were to come in and try to regulate, that we wouldn't be undermining a whole job segment. And I think, to the best of my ability, my aim to do is how do we draw the line fairly? What is Pono? Where do we deal with papaya, which have been studied for 12 years? How do we deal with them? How do we deal with and just trying to hold the line where we are, but not say, oh, let's send it out. Every time there's been a task force, nothing has happened. Every time there's been committees, nothing has happened. So that doesn't mean that I believe it's very important to pass this now with, what I want to know is where everybody on the council disagrees, what would make it so they could live with this bill. I debated going down to, well, what's the lowest common denominator that still has integrity? And instead I decided pretty much to go with a more continue to include all the findings and purposes, but I wanted to hear what you all have to say, and also for the public to be able to follow the conversation. So I actually have prepared an amendment which would allow this.
Excuse me, Miss Willie. Okay, you just timed out. But because she has an amendment and she is the originator of the bill, I'm going to allow her to present her amendment rather than let us start discussing the bill without the amendment. It doesn't seem to make sense.
Okay, I'm going to wait, and let me just say the amendment adds an ad hoc committee onto it. It still passes the bill, but I am going to, let me make a few more statements and then go to allow others to speak. So there are different options. The one other option is I wrote this bill to minimize the amount of regulatory decisions that would need to be made, how to enforce it, what would be in registration. And a lot of that really could come out. What a law does is it sets a standard. This is what's acceptable in our location. And you can also put in how it's going to be enforced, how it's going to be regulated. I think one can draft this in a way without taking out, just like when we did the coffee bill and taro, it doesn't say, and if you break this law, this is what happens, or don't put cigarette butts on the beaches. So that's another option. We can eliminate that and allow the ad hoc committee to go forward and address those issues. So I think the important thing is looking through going through the exceptions. Basically, in this draft, papaya, there's absolutely no regulation of papaya other than that they register. And registration does provide the knowledge to all of us. So
you need to make a motion to put the amendment on the floor before you start talking about it.
Okay. Or why don't I'd like to yield because
Okay.
I really haven't heard others, and I just sort of want, if we sort of generally discuss and move forward, if that's okay.
That's fine.
I'd really rather do that.
Thank you. Mr. Onishi, you're next. Ms. Poindexter after. Ms. Poindexter.
Okay. I'd just like to say I do agree that there's an issue before us, and it's GMO is the issue. I'd like to also say that I know we have the anti-GMO and GMO, but if we print out the pros, for me, the anti-GMO and the pro-GMO, they had both sides gave me great arguments. My job here is to sit and to listen to both sides. That's what my job is. I'm not an expert. I'm not a scientist. I didn't go to school. I'm not a farmer. You know, so for me, I'm listening to both sides who have both great arguments. Then I've also thought about, well, how can we come together to be able to talk about what needs to happen? I've gone around, they've come to my community, both sides, tried to talk with our communities, and we came to the table, both who were for and against. And we had great discussions. We just had one. You were there in my community and on Saturday for anti-GMO, and you had some of the people who were growing the GMO corn, and we had a great conversation on how we could move forward, and even the possibility of acknowledging that if they could grow a type of corn that was non-GMO, but they're not farmers. So even if you look at the cattle ranchers, they're not farmers. So if the shipment, something happens to the boats that don't come in and they don't have feed, then what do? We say, well, you got to be a farmer now, but we don't have a backup for them. So I'm a little afraid of what we're doing as a council because we don't have the expertise. So that's why I am putting in a resolution to do a task force, whether you're putting something else besides a task force, because you alluded to the fact, Councilmember Willie alluded to the fact that task force don't work. Okay, Richard Spiegel was on a coexisting state task force that they had. They came up with a study and showed what things didn't work and some things that worked. So I called him. I said, can you sit down with me? What worked, what didn't work? Or do you agree that we need to bring the experts to the table? While we put a moratorium on, for me, I would like to see no more GMO introduced to this island. Okay, no more GMO introduced to this island until we start doing that task force to find out, do the studies. You know, we're not the experts here. You know, I'm listening, and like I said, both sides have great arguments. And I cannot tell this person whose reality, their perception is their reality on both sides. I cannot switch their sides and try to talk them into switching a side because that's their reality. But we're not. I just feel so uncomfortable not being that scientist at the table or saying things about USDA and FDA in here that I don't agree with, because if you're saying I'm not trusting them, I have to trust them to some extent. So all I'm saying is I'm sitting with Richard Spiegel. A lot of you may know him. He's an organic farmer. He was the honeybee guy, and looking at a task force that has a level playing field, that brings the experts to the table so that they can advise our council, like what, Margaret, we did with the Real Property Tax Task Force. We had the audit done. It was completed. It came before the council with a lot of recommendations. We created a task force to address these issues to come before the council. And all I'm saying is this is a very serious, critical issue that we're dealing with, you know? And to have it just come before us and for me to help make a decision this critical without having all of the players at the table, which I know can work. And even Richard Spiegel, he says, coming together, because he's a mediator also, it can. He sat on that. He said what didn't work. That's why I went to him. What didn't work? How do we need to organize to make this happen while we don't allow any more GMO onto this island, okay? No more prohibitions or more GMO on that island. I don't agree with any field testing. With the exception to the floral industry because it doesn't hurt our food supply, I don't think. And that's something I got to go research again. I've been doing a lot of research. I feel like I need to go back to school and become either a farmer or a scientist. But so I'm saying with the exemption of the floral industry because it does not affect our food supply, but no open field testing, no more introductions of GMO or no more prohibitions while we move forward with the task force at the same time. So something as simple as that can work and it be a level playing field and with the experts at the table. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Anishi, you still want to pass? Okay. Ms. Eoff.
Thank you. And thank you, Margaret and Val. I've been thinking about this so much over the last few weeks. I've read as much as I could read. I've listened to videos. I've talked to people. And I agree, we're not going to become experts, but we're also elected to protect public health and safety, and there's some very real concerns out there. Yesterday, I listened to the discussion on Kauai County Council, and all I could think of was I hope we don't get to that discussion. I hope we can do something here to prevent us from down the line just worrying about how much tons of pesticides are being dumped on our ag lands, our water, groundwater, into our air, dust, children, all of that. So I actually on my own before I was glad to hear the two of them are both thinking about a task force and or an ad hoc committee. A task force was something that earlier on was out there, but I'm not sure whether we can do both. I see the difference between a task force and an ad hoc committee, though, whereas a task force may take this bill out of our control and no more than one or two of us could be part of a task force, whereas an ad hoc committee, if I could get some clarification maybe from Mr. Ishida what it could or could not do, I'd be interested to see, because an ad hoc committee could include up to 4 of us, and then we could meet with experts or bring in as much information as we need for as long as it takes us to be able to craft some language into a bill that could become an ordinance simple enough to belong in our county code, effective enough to do basically what the prohibition on taro and coffee has done. And so I'm not sure whether an ad hoc committee could be a vehicle for us to achieve language if there's something that would prevent us from meeting like that.
For the record, Lincoln Oshita Corporation Counsel, Ms. Eoff.
I'm sorry I didn't give you more warning than I was going to call you.
You gave me more than enough. It's a good question. There's a distinction. What you're talking about when you talk about up to 4 members, that's called the Permitted Interaction Group. We call it colloquially, I think this council calls it an ad hoc committee. They are subject to, there are certain sunshine law requirements. For example, you couldn't form that today. You can't form it today because it's not on the agenda for creation today. So that's not, it can happen in the future, but it's not going to happen today. The good part about the Permitted Interaction Group is up to 4 council members can be on it, along with members of the public, stakeholders, whoever, and you meet outside of sunshine, and that's permitted. And as long as you report back, and you all know the rest, right? The danger with setting up what you're talking about, a task force, okay? There is some danger to that. You don't want it to be, you don't want to make it overly specific. And the reason is one of the unintended consequences of creating a task force is
Is this as opposed to the ad hoc idea?
Yes, as opposed to the ad hoc, is this. The definition of a sunshine board under HRS Chapter 92 is any organization or any entity which is created by legislative act, which is required to take official action at meetings. Now, you got to be careful with that, because that's what you could inadvertently be doing, is creating we're thinking, okay, a task force. Up to 2 members of the council, members of the public, stakeholders, go off, do your thing, and report back. I'm not sure that it's as simple as that. I think when you start making it very tight and formalized in terms of, okay, this is what you're going to do, this is the issues you're going to discuss, this is who's going to be on it, I think that you could inadvertently create a sunshine board by not intending to. So my suggestion, if you go down the road of a task force, to the extent that you can, keep it as broad as possible, because with the specificity, I think, brings the requirements of Chapter 92.
And then as far as an ad hoc committee made up of up to 4 members of the council, would they have more freedom to investigate?
Excuse me for interrupting. They would clearly, those up to 4 members, plus members, whoever else you want on it, clearly they can act and meet outside of Sunshine, because it's set up for that purpose.
And would we just need to be careful how we define its scope and purpose then, or
well, under
would that be tricky?
Under that section, that requires specificity. Mm-hmm. It requires that the members of the board be identified, that they be charged the specific task or the specific task that they're being assigned to investigate. And that requires the specificity.
Well, I think it's something, as we deliberate today, that we could keep in mind as we discuss this. So I just wanted to get as clear as I could. I'm not sure if I'm able to articulate what the scope and purpose of an ad hoc committee would be, but that's what I guess we'd have to talk about.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kern.
Okay, I wasn't quite.
Oh, sorry, I apologize.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to summarize some of the things. I mean, I've learned, like I said, probably more than the average citizen at this point, but not enough to know all the nuances. Margaret said that one of her main concerns with GMO is the cross-pollination and the effects that crops could have on other crops. That is clear as a problem, but I think my main concern, and what, if I'm looking at trying to narrow our focus to something that we can legislate without being too cumbersome, I would like to identify what it is actually is the biggest threat to our island. And after digesting what I've been able to and listening to what's going on Kauai, I pretty much agree with a statement that Valerie, Ms. Poindexter made, is that the field testing, the GMO open field testing, and the GMO seed corn has actually presented the biggest threats to our environment and to the people here and on islands in general. Whereas on the mainland, some of the regulations and restrictions may work. I feel that the islands are such unique and fragile places, and that we're so small that the amounts used to grow these types of crops and this type of farming is a lot more intense as far as its effects. So for me, I was looking at how can we pinpoint something, because I think what we've seen so far in Bill 79 is a little bit unmanageable, and I guess that's, I'm not trying to put it down. I admire Margaret for bringing this forward and including everything she did in the bill, but I think if we're actually going to be able to pass something here, I would look more at the example of the prohibition on GMO taro and coffee as somewhere we need to go towards there, maybe not as simplified as that, but something less cumbersome than what we're looking at now, and easier to understand, and something easier to prohibit, because if we can narrow it, then I think, as someone has already mentioned, the enforcement would almost become a non-issue, because it just wouldn't be able to occur. It wouldn't be something you could hide away, and you would know exactly what it is that's prohibited, and I don't think we would have to worry so much about enforcement either. And later on, I mean, as we learn more, as the world learns more, as science learns more, I think we can always come back and adjust our code to either include or exclude things. So I would say, I hope we can either form an ad hoc committee to include members of the council or something. That's kind of where I've concluded my thoughts at this point. Thank you.
Mr. Kern.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I was first to start out by saying that I'm vehemently opposed to Monsanto and the alike. 100%. We are dealing with a unique county, a unique agriculture environment here. I am very much about balance. And I think this conversation is not started out with GMO. I think we should move on to food sustainability and food security. That's what this conversation is really about. It's all tied together. I'm not a GMO guy. I'm not a super anti, and I'm not like super supportive. I'm just trying to find balance. I think there's a place for it when it's there. I have some concerns with this bill, just like right where it goes into the prohibitions, where it says no person shall knowingly engage in propagation.
Mr. Kern, are you on the amendment?
I am on the original bill.
The original bill. Okay, thank you.
No worries. Yeah, I'm on the original. I think the amendment looked to be the same as well. Yeah, no person shall engage in propagation, cultivation, raising, growing, sale, or distribution of transgenic organisms. That's huge. And then you exempt it down below. I'm just like, if we're going to do something, it has to be succinct and concise. And to me, that says, Safeway, you can't sell. And I mean, that's a different conversation than labeling. You know what I mean? I'm just like, if we're going to look at it, it needs to be thought out. And I am not a scientist as well. I don't have a degree in any of this stuff, but I'm just trying to bring logic and common sense to it. I have a major issue with predatory farming. We can't be having that. I have a major issue with cross-pollination. That's huge. But everything pollinates differently. I think we need to go and look at things on a case-by-case basis. I too support an ad hoc committee or some type of group. Maybe it's a task force, or it sounds like ad hoc committee would make the most sense. But I think there's a place for GMO. At times, if there's going to be something that is going to wipe out an entire industry, like it could have done with papaya, I don't see a problem with that. The same way that I see corn with 18, modified 18 different ways, and it's Roundup ready. I mean, that's different to me. It's kind of apples and oranges. And when you take one thing and if you're going to lose it, and there's a way to save it. If that's the only option that we have, we might need to look at that. Or we have to look at it and say, do we no longer want that industry? Do we no longer want that crop? That's a big question to ask. So I think we really, again, we need to be moving to food sustainability, food security. I do not want anybody's crops being cross-pollinated. I think the organic farmers should be able to grow organic. I think the conventional farmers should be able to grow conventional. And that's one of the challenges that I've been seeing here, is we have like the organic side to the GMO. And there's conventional right in the middle, okay? And just because you take away GMO does not mean you stop spraying pesticides, does not mean you stop using chemical-based fertilizer. Before GMO ever came along, you still sprayed pesticide, you still used chemical-based fertilizer. It still has an effect on the soil. It still burn the soil out. I still have to rotate your crops, rotate the land. So I think saying that GMO means all of this isn't necessarily true. Yes, it has its elements to it, and sometimes people even have to spray less potentially, but that's really, to me, moving outside the point. There's still that element of conventional farming that has the pesticides and the chemical-based fertilizers. That's not organic. I support organic. I've tried to do as much organic as I possibly can, so I'm bringing up, farmers market bill to let people, be able to sell their products easier. But we still have this issue. So the issue goes back to, how do we work together? How do we live? How do we coexist? How do we keep something from happening? How do we regulate and monitor and only have what would absolutely be necessary, and not have an influx and say, hey, GMO everywhere, Monsanto here, changes the whole outlook? That cannot happen. In my mind, we have to move forward with balance, and that's why I think having a task force, bringing people in, or ad hoc committee, I think would be the right word, bringing people in, have the organic farmers, have the conventional farmers, have the GMO farmers, all sit at the same table, have the scientists, academia, have people from the public, you know what I mean, have us, and actually work something out that'll coexist, because I really feel that we need to have an island that is self-sustainable, with food being #1 priority, energy being right up in there with it. But, food sustainability, food security, that's our conversation. I think this conversation is the friction to get us to that place, and having regulation on GMO, having guidelines on that is critical for that conversation. I'll come back around.
Yes. Mr. Kanuha.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with a lot of what's been said already. I'm glad we're finally having this discussion. Personally, for myself, I wish, Margaret, maybe yourself, before you brought up this bill, would have talked more with all the farmers from around this island who were, in the papaya industry, the flower industry, all these different fields that do grow GMO, to kind of see do they need to do that? I mean, see what their position is on a lot of this stuff. And before it came to the council, and all of a sudden there's this big backlash against our farmers, a lot of the people that farm here on this island, ranch here on this island. I think it would have been better to do a little bit more research before this brought up, but we have it here now. We're talking about it now, so this is where we are now. Personally, for myself, I grew up in Kona, in a local family, Hawaiian family, and we were raised on the idea of aloha, having aloha for everyone, being cooperative with everybody, having respect for everybody. So I just wanted to bring up, just for myself, I couldn't live with not talking about the last meeting we had. The farmers that came to testify, people were being booed and being there was a lot of things said about certain, when people were testifying, and I kind of had an issue with that, because myself having the aloha, everybody says aloha aina, having aloha for each other. When you say aloha aina, make sure you have aloha for yourself and for others before we say we need to have aloha with everything else. So I just wanted to say that, please, the respect factor needed to be there in the last one, and I'm glad we're having it here today. So I'm with all of us and with everybody else. So I had to bring that up within myself so that everybody knew about that. But I won't be talking too much about the pros and cons of GMO. I had an issue with this bill. I think it's overly complicated. I really wish we could have focused more on how the coffee and the taro one was, how simple it is. It prohibits coffee and taro GMO. Simple. It's simple for everybody to understand. With this one, there's no black and white. There's no pro. There's no anti-GMO. It's overly complicated. Nobody really understands. Even us, as the council, are having a hard time understand how this bill is actually going to affect each and every one of us on this island. So that's why it makes it difficult for myself to support or not support something like this. So that's what I had an issue with. So personally, for me, I wish we could kind of stay on those type of grounds with the prohibitions of the taro and coffee, and kind of go into what the issue is. Is it the issue of the seed corn with exportation to the United States, to every place else? Is that the big issue? And the Monsanto, that type of thing? Or do we need to prohibit any other GMOs from coming to this island? I think that's the question we can put into this type of small simplification type of thing, so that everybody does understand what the ramifications of this is. But I'm going to go into what I personally think the medium ground is in this whole discussion, whether you're pro or against. I think the medium ground would be a task force or an ad hoc committee. What is the biggest issue? Food security, food sustainability. How do we sustain ourselves in the future, now? How can we feed everybody on this island now and in the future? That's the biggest issue we have here, and I think that's where we need to look towards focusing our efforts on. I know, Ms. Willie, you said nothing has happened with task forces. That's what one of your statements was. You were not to demean you or any way, but I mean, you're in charge of our property tax task force. That was one of your big issues, and it was one of the issues that we had to bring up, and we look forward to how we're gonna, whether raise our taxes or not. So, I mean, and we promoted that to a 10th degree, our property tax task force. So that's something that I hope we can get out. And I don't think it's a negative to have as many people come onto the table as possible to know what's going on. Where are we going to go in the future with our food? So I think that's really important. The other two things I also wanted to put down was, if we want to be cautious. We want to make sure that we know what we're eating or whatever it is. So maybe put a moratorium on all new introduced GMO until, suppose, the task force comes out and we know exactly what legislation we want to support. That's the kind of put a moratorium on all new introduced GMO until the task force comes back with recommendations and the council can vote on them. That's one. And then I think that was the most. And then, of course, grandfather in the existing GMOs that we have now. There's more I have to say, but I'll yield it this time.
Thank you, Ms. Willie. Oh, wait a minute. Mr. Iligan. We're going to let everybody have at least one round here, so Mr. Iligan. And, okay, Mr. Yoshimoto afterwards.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm being a good girl.
Well, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for being here. We, as a council, understand how important this issue is to you. And we want to make the best decision, not just for some majority, or we want to make the best decision for everyone. And as I'm listening to other council members, I do want to make a suggestion to where Council Member Ayoff was going. And if we could have Corp Counsel Lincoln Ashita come forward. I want to throw in a third option in there. Someone mentioned a task force and an ad hoc committee. The third option is a study group. Have, for example, the geothermal health study group that was facilitated by Peter Adler. And this takes it out the hands of each council member so they can do their responsibility for their district and make sure that their districts are taken care of and not just focus all their energy to this one issue, but that facilitator, it will be the neutral facilitator that will look at both issues. And that is a third option, and I wanted to know if that conflicts with any sunshine violation or any rules in our council floor that is compared to the study group, compared to the ad hoc committee or the task force.
I'm not sure I understand exactly who comprises this group, what their task is. Are you talking about council members being on this group?
Well, the ad hoc committee, of course, it's run by the council. There's 4 at most. And the task force, you have at most 2 council members because of sunshine violation. Well, the whole reason why, what I'm hearing from other council members, the reason why we're even going to a task force or an ad hoc committee is because we ourselves don't have not only the expertise, but the experience of dealing with GMOs or genetically engineered organisms. So the reason why you even start a study group or a task for an ad hoc committee is to find what the findings are and hear the recommendations. They're just 3 different processes. I'm just trying to give you a third option to this body to figure out what is best. What can we get that is the most accurate information and the least bias on either group, and will be the best information that we can make the best decisions on. Am I just rambling on, or?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you mean. When I think of study group, it's 6 of my friends in law school sharing notes with each other.
Well,
You know,
the task force, I mean, the simple thing would be whatever's in the task force would be the same in the study group. For example, you would have somebody who's a nutritionist, so someone who knows nutrition, someone who's a rancher, an organic farmer, so on. So that study group would find out what key players they need.
can I just interrupt there?
Go ahead.
That's exactly the point I was making when Ms. Eoff asked the question. If you're going to go down the road of starting to be specific like that, you're better off doing the permitted interaction group, the ad hoc committee under HRS 92. Because at this point, you're beginning to dictate, I want someone from this discipline, from this science, this, and once you start going down that road of being specific, you are essentially, by legislation, creating a sunshine board. That whether you put 2 members on that board or not, up to 2 council members, you can't hide behind the permitted interaction exception, the 2-member permitted interaction exception. It don't matter. You created a sunshine board. So if what you're suggesting is this, a study group comprises members who, from various disciplines, the safest thing is just to go through the formation of an ad hoc committee through the permitted interaction exception to sunshine. I mean, since you asked, that's what I think.
Okay. So that is, if I could have Councilmember Eoff comment.
Thank you. Yeah, the thoughts that come to mind for me, a study group, fine. A task force, fine. There's a lot of information out there, and it's wonderful to accumulate a lot of information. But I feel that what we need to do as a legislative body is find out how we can put together language that we would consider good legislation for our island. And I don't think that either the task force or a study group, while that could happen on the side, I don't really think that would help us. I think that'll bring us back to the same point we're at right now, and there's going to be information all over the place. We need, I think, to stay in control of a conversation that helps us to craft language, and that's what I'm not sure whether if that's even would be an allowed or a permitted interaction between 4 of us.
Answering that question, actually, a permitted interaction group, if you look at the definition of it under HRS 92, it's to investigate.
Investigate.
So
what can we investigate?
it gets really touchy if you create a permitted interaction group, a task force, an ad hoc committee, to go draft legislation, because really that's what should be done here. Yeah, it's the purpose is to investigate.
So an ad hoc committee could investigate, and then the maker of the legislation could amend in using that information?
That's one option,
That ad
sure.
hoc committee would bring back to the council.
Absolutely.
Okay, Mr. Iligan has the floor. I need to make a little comment here. I think we're actually getting really far off of Bill 79, because we're not talking about Bill 79, we're talking about task force, which is okay. This committee can set up we can set up an ad hoc committee. That's not a problem. But I'm going to call on the 2 people who have not yet spoken, but I think we need to talk about the bill. That's what everybody's out here is sitting and waiting for us to talk about, the bill. What's in the bill, what's not in the bill, that type of thing. So, Mr. Yoshimoto, you're next.
Are you done?
Are you finished at this moment? By the way, this is a very controversial subject. I am not going to limit us to three rounds. If it takes more to get this resolved, I'm okay with that. So, Mr. Iligan, do you want to yield the floor at this time, or you want to go on?
I just got a couple more
Sure,
sentences
go
to say, and then I'll yield the floor. I just wanted to give another option, and that was a study group. Now, how I am feeling about this original bill is one of the things that really concerned me, Councilmember Kern already voiced it out. it's so hard to understand what will happen when this bill becomes law, this original bill. And I just wanted to voice out that I would be in favor in trying to find out those information that could unfoggy that or clear it up. And that's the reason why I would be interested in either setting up a task force or an ad hoc committee or a study group to somehow draft those language that would be more precise and more clear rather than this current bill. So that's how I feel at this time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Yoshimoto.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, we've heard a lot of testimony. I want to thank everyone for the information, the time, the passion. I think it's been very helpful. We read probably literally hundreds of pages of testimony, listened to different comments from other islands as well. I think we got some DVDs from the Kauai Council's deliberation and things like that. So that's very informative. Just so members of the public who haven't been watching us closely for the last 6 or 8 years, just so you know, my philosophical and fundamental stance is that I believe in the public's right to know. That's why, as Ms. Ford will recall, in the past I introduced a resolution calling for labeling of GMO products. That passed our council, and of course, nothing ever happened, about that or from that. And in the past, we had taro and coffee come before us, and we heard, many hours of testimony, and I supported those too. And, like Mr. Drew Kanua had mentioned, talking about specifics, making it easier to handle, I think he hit it right on the head. Because, in those particular examples, it was easy for us to grasp the nature of the problem and how to fix it. I see some testifiers who testified before on the taro and coffee, and talking about science. And science is, plays a very important tool in what we do in our lives. And, as we all know, nothing is perfect. No, none of us are perfect. And some things, or most things we want to get right. Some things, we'll have mistakes. And I guess so, what the difficulty lies in making a decision, at least for me, is, that uncertainty. So then Ms. Willie talks about the precautionary principle and wanting to be safe. And that's important too, and not wanting to harm our Aina. And you've heard several council members talk about balance, so that's important, coexistence. And, fundamentally from looking at Bill 79 as it's drafted now, I think Ms. Willie already has a pretty good idea that it needs work. And that's why she's coming up with an amendment. So, that's my position on Bill 79. It definitely needs work. As far as where she wants to go with this, I think it's something that needed to be addressed. My comment to the scope of the bill is, again, that if we're going to do something broad, we need to set up specific controls in how any new introduction is handled. In other words, we cannot, as I feel, we cannot tie the hands of scientists who are trained to help. At the same time, we don't want mistakes to happen. So that's why I think, taking the broad approach, while it's something that that might benefit in the long run, we need to make sure we do it correctly. And that's the problem I think we're all facing here, is whether we have the knowledge or we have the comfort level in voting on something that we feel will be good law. Because the last thing we want to do is pass bad law and then set a precedent where it kind of makes more of a mess than we already have. So in terms of task force, ad hoc committee, we're not really talking about that, but I do think another option would be to just continue to do what we're doing, and that's having public meetings, and that's working through legislation here. That way we have all 9 members present. It'll be a little more time-consuming, or probably a lot more time-consuming. The public will get to watch everything. So it's another option. It'll take a lot of time. I think it'll take more time than any other method that was mentioned before. But the upside is that, we have all 9 voices, kind of working like a work in progress kind of thing, if that's, the will of this body. The ad hoc committee, again, I can comment on those, on the ad hoc committee and the task force. We can comment on those, if or when it comes up. Well, I guess Ms. Poindexter mentioned, that she's planning on bringing that forward. So those are viable options too. There's no perfect fit to anything. I think we can do several things. The bottom line is I believe we need to know what we're eating. I believe that, the other levels of government, have failed to act or haven't acted enough, and I guess that, leaves it with us. Ms. Ford, you remember we were called the lowest level of government when we first started? Yeah. And it seemed a little insulting, but it's actually the biggest compliment, because people can come to our office, call us, talk to us, see us. They see us in the markets, they see us in the parks, and, that's what we're here for. So, my message is we want to do the right thing. We want to have the right tools. Granted, as Ms. Willie shows you, there's these stacks of testimonies, and so the answer lies there. It's right in there, trying to fit what we want to do into legislation. So as to Bill 79, Ms. Willie, I think you know that, that's not good as is. Your amendment, we can talk about when you get forward, but I'm eager to get to work because this is something that's going to take some time. But I think in the end, if we really want to get something done, I think we will.
Mr. Onishi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Looking at Bill 79, to me, it's too restrictive. I mean, it's like you went over the limits, okay? And I think all council members realize that you need some flexibility. People need choices, okay? And that's where I think with Bill 79 is restricting to choices. People are not having their choice, okay? But the bill itself, like I said, it's too restrictive. It's, you went over the limit, and now, but with these amendments supposed amendments that will be coming forward, before we do that, I would want to see where there could be a study where we could get recommendations that can be brought back to the council so that we can do the amendments in a proper way, or the best for everyone. Because the amendments you might be bringing up, some council members, we didn't all see it, right? And so we don't know what's in it, so we're gonna have to look it over, and then what if we don't want certain things, then we gotta come back and amend it again. So I think what the proper way would be is to, get this group together, get some recommendations, and then redo your amendments or propose amendments to the council, and then we can go from there. Besides the bill, I mean, that's what I want to see, okay? I want to see where, before we do any more amendments to Bill 79, is to get a study group together or a task force or whatever, and then get the recommendations, come back to the council, and then we can do our amendments from there. People mention about Monsanto field testing. I've never heard that. I never heard where they was going to come to this island. Okay, and I think we did hear testimony, council members, that Monsanto said they wasn't even looking at coming to our island. Okay, so I sometimes get just, like not irritated, but it's just that I haven't heard anything, and then people are bringing this up. Okay, we talk about we talk about the taro, we talk about the coffee. Okay, we all know as council members that on the coffee right now, there's a beetle that's attacking the coffee beans. The farmers are right now using biocontrol to control the beetles. So to me, I ask, like the scientists, is what's the difference between biocontrol and biotech? Okay, and so, because the thing is, with biocontrol, like when we had to go to the Guayvi, there was a lot of discussion about how biocontrol was going to affect the Guayvi plants, and then what they were worried about, how this would spread to other plants in the areas. So that was all the concerns that people brought up. Okay, so that's where sometimes I wonder, what is the difference? The other part I cannot understand, or I really have a problem, is the legal part of this whole bill. And so I did send a letter to the attorneys general. They responded back, and they wanted Corp Counsel to send a letter to them. And Lincoln, can you please come up? And I was kind of very disappointed on the part of the attorneys general, because
Good afternoon, Lincoln Ashita, Corporation Counsel.
yeah. And so can you at least let the council members know What was the response from the AG's office?
Well, Mr. Onishi had contacted me and had asked about the Attorney General's former opinion on the state legislation regarding the labeling of GMO products, which was heard before the Hawaii State Legislature last year. The Attorney General had issued an opinion to Senator Baker, I believe, in Maui, indicating that there were some significant Commerce Clause infirmities and issues with the GMO labeling bill. Our concern, or my concern, with respect to the integrity of Ms. Willie's bill was whether the same infirmities would apply to Bill 79. They responded to us by saying that they're not going to tell us. No, I mean, I'm really not being facetious about it. They said that they're not going to comment on any federal preemption issues, which I was obviously concerned about that because they had done so with respect to the state legislation. So, I was merely just trying to make sure that we did our due diligence and we covered those bases. So the next step was to, I know Mr. Onishi had contacted the United States Attorney, the federal attorneys, and their response was that they refused, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Onishi, but they were not going to comment on any local county legislation.
Correct.
So, that's where we're at now. But, since you asked, this is something that, Kauai's looking at right now. And, I just read in the Garden Isle paper today, I think that they were going to ask the Attorney General what they thought, and, they could just call us and then we can tell them what they're going to say, right? But I got with Al Castillo, who's my counterpart on Kauai, and we're going to compare bills, put our heads together. Whatever decision, or whatever decision you make, we just want to make sure that you have the right information to go by, to know that what you can or cannot do.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and so that's why too, looking at what Kauai did, the council members on Kauai, which was unanimous, that they voted to defer until they get their legal opinion, right, from either the state or from also their corp council, but basically from the state on what can they do. So to me, I think they kind of set the ball going, or setting the roadway for us to kind of look at how we can do ours too, is that's what we need, I think, to myself, or I guess to my opinion, is that we need to know for sure what we propose or what we do is legal. Okay, because we are supposed to be so-called following the law, right, when we make our decisions. And so, I also wanted to include that we did send Bill 79 to the attorneys general, which they didn't even, I guess, they looked at it, but they made no comment on it. But I also wanted to let you folks know that I did send an email to the governor and to the lieutenant governor to ask them to see if they could encourage the attorneys general to at least look at it and see if they can give us an opinion. But, I would recommend that we defer this for now. We can form that task force or the working group or whatever, ad hoc committee, whatever, but then also get a legal opinion from the AG's office. Thank you.
Council members, I would like permission to be able to make a few comments with each round. I don't know if the council is willing to allow me to do that. I think we're going really off track here on this bill. So, does anyone have an objection to me speaking?
I do.
Okay, I'll wait. Ms. Willie, you're next.
I feel that we're all sort of coming together and that we can really make a difference here. I tend to agree with Chairman Yoshimoto. My preference would be that we just hold it and that we work this through, all of us. And I just get afraid it goes out to pasture, it comes back, we sort of start where we are. I think it's an important enough subject that we do hold meetings. There's certainly, I totally agree with everyone. I mean, I finally got the rest of this past week. I mean, I wish I had gotten this July 2nd. It was really the past few days that I got, or the past week, all of the testimony. So everything was blocked. I don't know whether you all have gotten all of this, but it's, every time I said, oh, I've been through enough, I'm sure I've gotten the gist, and then I go on and I come to one talking about the task force on coexistence and why the problems were there. I get one from 2012, one of the council members who submitted testimony submitted a GMO. 2012, one of the council members who submitted testimony submitted a GMO bill to the Honolulu Council, and that it was not allowed to be addressed. The chair did not allow it to be addressed. I mean, I just kept hitting and pearls of wisdom, and one thing that was mentioned, there's certainly, I sort of debated, do I take this bill and really simplify it down? I think it needs to, but I really hope that we could sort of have a discussion closer to where I started, and particularly including all of those findings and purposes. A lot of that is there really addressing legal issues that I could see being raised. So I want to say on a couple points, just on the task force, I was talking about the task force on coexistence, the ones I read up on, ones in Europe and different places. How do we get coexistence and have them both? It really came down to, as the one you talked about, the state legislature, nothing happened. I'm not trying to put down task force, but specifically in that area, there was a lot of trouble. I think the ad hoc committee would certainly be preferable, and I'm not going to get into that because that's not on the present bill, but I will submit something. I do want to talk about the law, and maybe Lincoln, you could come back up. We did meet. I mean, I think this is sort of my area, and I find a lot of these memos sent out by the Attorney General or lobbyists or whatever. There's one key Supreme Court case, and all of these cases that are critical don't even cite that, and that's the Maine versus Taylor case. I have posted it as a communication, so if anyone wants to look at it, they can find it. And basically saying that a local government or state or local government has the right to whether it's a moratorium or stop practices, protect agriculture, in that case fishing. There are two things. There's the preemption, what has been preempted, and there's no case across the entire United States where has challenged any of these local county prohibitions on GMOs and have gotten anywhere. Also on commerce, which is one of the, I think Councilmember Freshonishi sent around a legal memo questioning the Labeling Act of the state. I happen to agree that there are constitutional issues with labeling and doing it on a local level. But labeling, in terms of the interference with interstate commerce, is very different from where you're discussing how do you prevent contamination and degradation of the environment from the use of certain pesticides. So I also, at the earlier meeting, distributed a communication, which I can get out again, but it's written by the United States Congressional Research Division, basically saying that addressing the preemption issue and addressing the dormant commerce clause and interstate commerce issues. So, I mean, just, Lincoln, I mean, when we've spoken, I don't believe that either of us have come up with where this is an illegal bill. And I do think when someone says, what is the law that controlled us? There's the public trust doctrine and there's the precautionary principle. We don't have to know the science. It's both ways, but we're supposed to err on the side of conservation, err on the side of caution until we know better.
Ms. Willie, your
Yes.
time just ended. Mr. Ishida.
Okay, I'm going to have Mr. Ishida, why don't you comment, make a comment?
And we'll go to the next person.
Maybe you can ask me your question.
Okay, my question is, do you, I'm not talking about anyone else, is there something where you feel that we should not pass this, or that should be the stumbling block because it's illegal, or that it's somehow unconstitutional?
No, I think that I've been fairly consistent when asked that there are not, in my opinion, based on when I looked at your bill, including your amendments, your proposed amendments, that there are no, in my mind, obvious legal impediments that would prohibit the bill from, being passed or enforced. Certain legislation or certain acts of the council or any legislative bodies, sometimes, it's obvious that they're illegal, they're what I call patently unconstitutional. Baseless or suspicionless drug testing is a great example. But short answer to your question, no. I think what I'm hearing today and what has been what I've been observing is the real dispositive issues here, at least in my mind at this point, are not legal. I sense that most council members are just their concerns. It may be partially legal, but it's also they're more interested in the background or the science or those issues. I don't sense that this is one that hinges on is it legal or not. It is definitely an issue that we're going to have to look at, and that's why I contacted Mr. Castillo today on Kauai. But obviously, as I said previously, if there's any obvious legal infirmity that rose to a constitutional level, you're going to be the first to know. All 9 of you are going to be the first to know. But presently, I didn't see any.
And let me add one more sentence.
Excuse me. Mr. Ishida, are you finished?
I am. Thank you.
Okay, hang on. We're going to Mr. Zern. Mr. Kern.
No problem. Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay. Speaking to the bill, I'm born and raised here on the island. I love this island. This is my home. Grew up out in the country. Didn't have any Pop-Tarts. I was like granola. Wish I had like all the other stuff. So like, very much, understand like the importance of being, of organic eating. Like, that's when I was growing up. That's how I was raised. Also, fished a lot, and I feel like this bill is like casting a massively huge net with not enough people to bring it in a decent time. And so what happens is, while you're trying to get this specific fish to bring to market or to bring to your home to feed your family, in the process you've captured a turtle in there, captured another turtle. Taking so long to get this thing through that the eels are now inside your net, eating your fish, eating your catch. And you get these unintended consequences. And all of a sudden, things you didn't want to happen. I didn't want to harm a turtle. I wanted to have my fish. The eels ate them. I ended up killing a turtle in the process. That's what this is almost happening here. Where I think we need to, yes, we need to have a good-sized net, something we can cast out there, bring in, have it make sense. Because right now, I don't feel like, why would we even have the papaya in here? Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about what are the potential issues coming in. I think the big elephant in the room is Monsanto going to come in? Is there going to be field testing in here? Are my crops going to get cross-pollinated? Even if Monsanto comes in here and says they're not going to come here, I don't believe them. We should still have something, to make sure that they don't. And with this exemption in here where it says, agricultural research institution, a company like that can form an agricultural research institution like this, and they'd be field testing. It's too much. Where let's pinpoint what do we really want? How do we make sure that we do not bring in any other GMOs that we do not want? How do we have an avenue that if there's an absolute need, an absolute necessity, that option would be open through council approval or some type of regulatory approval? So it's not, hey, we need it and there's going to be some falsity to it, but an actual true need. And that's what I feel like we could maybe do in an ad hoc committee, or as Mr. Yoshimoto said, that maybe we can do that here in the, just do it here and draft legislation here on the floor, which would be a totally new concept. I like it. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's such a large net. I'm just worried about the unintended consequences. And lawmaking, we have to be, I take it very serious. Like, it's the effect of a good law is good, but the effect of a bad law is way worse. It's huge, it's widespread. And that's what my concern is. And I see where you're coming from, just like try to throw the net, lock it all up, have some exemptions, and we're good. But no, the exemption is that turtle stuck in the net, and there's already a negative impact to the papaya industry. Do you want to hurt the farmers? They've had how many years of researching this? We just have markets opening up. There's an element to, and me talking to the papaya farmers, they use the GMO papaya so they can grow the organic, but it all has a certain buffer zone, and any papaya farmer that's growing organic or non-GMO, just conventional, does not want to send their crop to their buyer and have them test it and it come up GMO. I guarantee you that. They will get rejected and they will have bad faith now with their buyer. So I know that they're working on that. That's what I've talked to them about. You know what I mean? So why have that here? Why have the floral industry? Should be part of this conversation. In my mind, there's $1 million a year business for here. There should have options to be able to adjust it that's not affecting our food source, that's not going to cross-pollinate with somebody else. I think everybody knows I am not about the big companies like that. I'm not about big GMO, and I'm vehemently opposed cross-pollination, predatory farming in any way, and that's what we need to be looking at. How do we work together? What are the issues coming in? And not turn the small papaya farmer into a Monsanto. It's not the same. It really isn't. But we do need to work together, and I firmly believe that we need to have controls in place and have a good understanding of what the effects of those controls will be for our island, for our county, so we can be food sustainable and food reliant. And I do support an ad hoc committee, or I do support working this out on the floor, but instead of all of this, let's have a good net, let's cast it right, and let's bring home the right fish to our home, to our family. I yield.
Thank you. I think we can also, I think at this point we can go either way. We can sit here today, we can keep it in committee, meet again. We are allowed to bring experts to the table if we need them. And I think we're coming kind of close, like Margaret said, to knowing a little bit about where we all want to go. And I looked at the bill pretty carefully, and I think that, for instance, and looked at the code. And I don't believe that our code should be amended with anything near as wordy and complex as this. I think that we need a short findings and purpose clause. I think the prohibition should be clearly defined, and I'm not sure if this is it, but something on the lines of experimental GMO field trials, as well as any new commercial seed corn crops are prohibited. I'm not saying that's it, but some statement that narrows it down to an identifiable prohibition. And then after that, like Zendo said, you would not need long exemptions, because you're not dealing with anything else. You're identifying something that we want to do to protect our island, and then nothing else is even discussed. The same with the enforcement. I really don't believe that you need to go into too much detail on enforcement at that point, because it just won't be an issue. So if other council members may be willing, or maybe we need to think about it more, but if that's the direction we need to go to create something that's lawful and succinct, then we could agree to do that as a committee.
me off. Are you finished?
Thank you, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Poindexter.
Okay, I feel that it's my fiduciary responsibility, when it comes to protecting our county from any risks. And I feel the current Bill 79 has a lot of risks in it, and that's what I'm afraid of. And when I've heard a lot of testimony, about pesticides and the 800-pound gorilla in the room, which was Monsanto. I just feel that there's so much assumptive language and faulty logic there. I'm afraid to move with how Bill 79 is. And I'd like to see, again, something simple as the ad hoc committee set up and making sure that Monsanto doesn't come. So it's like no open field testing on this island. Nothing like Kauai, what they're going through, or Maui, what they're going through. Prevent what they're going through happening on this island. We don't need open field testing on this island. And I understand the floral industry, is going, well, we're doing testing because they make different color roses or whatever. I don't know what, I don't know enough about the floral industry and what they do. But, with exempting them because it doesn't, so we can put something forward that will also protect us from that type of open field testing with the exemption of the floral industry and go with an ad hoc committee. We need to take these steps. We need to take the small steps. It's like we have everything in this huge bowl, and the unintended consequences, as everybody has been mentioning, is so risky for our county and for our survival. So I just hate cutting off industries at the knees just because, and we didn't intend to. So, yeah, that's where I'm going with this idea for now.
Ms. Woolley? Oh, sorry, Ms. Dillon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Been hearing about the whole testing thing. I mean, why are we even testing? The reason why is we want to find out if this thing is safe or not. That's why we test. That's why we do that. We experiment to find out that if it works or it doesn't work. But we don't want to test and harm anybody, and to the extent to where we compromise somebody's health. We don't want to test that. And testing engineered crops, it's not cheap. It's expensive. And the reason why it's expensive is because they monitor everything. That's why you test, to make sure there's not unintended consequences. And I'm hearing that we're against testing, but why are we testing in the first place? We're testing in the first place to find out if it's harmful or not harmful. And I've been to the floral industry where the USDA come and test the genetically engineered crops. And it's clearly walled off, clearly encased, and they monitor it like on a daily basis. So it's pretty safe when you test. I don't even understand why. I know some people are shaking their heads, but I'm trying to understand. The reason why you have a controlled testing is because you want to make sure it doesn't get away. You want to make sure if it does, then you know about it. That's why we test. It's not like a backyard testing with me and my friends. It's millions of dollars, thousands, millions, I don't know, but it's expensive. And I'm gonna guess that it's pretty controlled, and I don't know why we're not open to at least testing in a controlled area. And that's just my point. I just wanna bring it out to the council members, because we do need to sometimes take a risk on a test to find out if it is harmful or it is safe. I'm just saying, we do have to take that in accountability. Thank you.
Hold on. We've gone second round, Mr. Kuninha.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I personally would not support the testing
especially here on Hawaii Island, we have an obligation to make sure that public health and safety is number one, and to put anything that we have here at risk of something that could become contaminated or anything like that. That's not a risk that I'm willing to take. But that's just your opinion, and I think it's right to have that opinion. But that's my opinion with that specific subject. On the lines of us going through this in council, I mean, it's fine. It's just this specific issue has been taking up all of my time, and you know, my constituents want me to work on legislation for specific items inside our own districts, and this is consuming every single part of my time. I don't think they elected me to only talk about GMO. So I think we need to talk about a sustainable island in agriculture. That's something that I would talk about forever. But that's my opinion about that. I think Ms. Eoff hit it off exactly how I believe we should go on with this particular bill. I hope we don't start talking about all these amendments, because it just goes into chaos and completely complicated for myself and for everybody else. I think we need to stick on Bill 79 and work through this with all of us instead of all these different amendments being proposed. So until we go into later on amending this bill, I think we need to stay on this subject and keep it there and keep it within our council committee. I don't know how the rest of the council members feel about that, but I'm just throwing that out there. So thanks.
Mr. Onishi.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, listening to the comments about keeping them in committee, I don't think we should be doing that. I think we should have it where, like I said, we defer it and we have, instead of an ad hoc, because then that's 4 members of the council, and I don't want to be on that ad hoc because I know it's going to take too much time, and I have other businesses to do too. So I would recommend that we do something where, you know, like maybe one council member or not even a council member on that task force or that study group, and have that, you know, we the council hire someone that can run that meeting or to be a mediator to do it and get everybody together and keep it independent as much as possible, and then they come back and give us the recommendations. But to keep it at committee level, I don't think, because this could last a whole year. Because with, you know, like Mr. Kuno mentioned about all these amendments, I mean, they're going to counter that other amendment at the next meeting and so forth, and it's going to go back and forth, and the people are going to have to come out every single meeting, and they're going to testify on every meeting about what the amendments are, and then, you know, I think we'll be wasting their time. So I think we should, you know, like I said, defer it, form whatever group that we need to get, but like an independent where I don't think any council members should be on it, but then if anybody wants to be on it, I'm fine with that, but I don't want to be on it. Thank you.
Mr. Yoshimoto.
Yeah, there's so much to comment on. I don't know where to start, Madam Chair. I think.
Why don't you take your place?
You want to speak for me? No.
Still way off topic.
Okay. Well, in deference to the chair, I think, you know, I did talk about Bill 79 and, you know, how it's currently drafted. So I think that's clear. You know, I think the horticulturists and the papaya farmers, we need to make provisions to make sure that you know, that they can continue to do business in a responsible manner. I think that's just the way we need to figure that out. But in terms of a task force or ad hoc committee or keeping it in committee, I mean, I'm totally open to that. I just offered keeping it in committee as another option. It will be it'll be a struggle, I think, as I mentioned before, if we're in committee. But I think it'll be a similar struggle with the ad hoc. The difference is, I guess, you would have more flexibility in having that discussion in the ad hoc committee. So you know, council members, I support either one. You know, because you know, the downside of having it in committee is, like Mr. Onishi said, it could possibly take a year. I would think the ad hoc committee would be in a far quicker timetable. Can't predict it, but that would be my, you know, gut instinct about that. And either way, I think we need to do something. I think doing nothing is the worst thing to do, so Ms. Ford gives me this look that, anyway, she can't talk because, as you know, she's the chair of the committee, so she speaks last. She can't participate in the discussion, so that's the price of chairmanship, Ms. Ford. Thank you.
Ms. Willie?
I think what the question is whether we pass something now, at least as a moratorium, which if you were to just simply take this bill and take out the sunset clause, basically just that, to say it would be basically a moratorium and add a task force. In other words, do we draw the line and go on and discuss where to go, or do we not do anything at this point and go into a discussion and put off making a decision? I don't think we have the luxury of doing that. I mean, I think that at least what I understood Ms. Poindexter saying, and also Ms. Eoff, if we draw the line and have a moratorium, and so we're holding things at bay right now, and go into, I think the ad hoc committee, I did put something out as a communication just to give a framework for doing that. I'm trying to, I think the simplest thing for me is like what Councilmember Kern said is, I feel like I've sort of taken what everybody's been saying, and I'd like to have the opportunity to basically do a stripped down version and come out with something simple. But when I say simple, I just want to say that the symbol of coffee and taro is just a blanket no, okay? So it makes it much simpler. It's just no. And that by doing, looking at each industry, we've got, you are allowed to really address it on a case-by-case basis. But if we do it as a moratorium, we're then and do an ad hoc committee, we're in a position to move forward without worrying, as Walter Ritty said on Molokai, suddenly we woke up and it was everywhere. Everywhere. And at the same time, I just want to say two things in terms of what, there's experimental corn on the other islands, but that's not, if you look at other areas of the country, you could be doing experimental wheat here. I think that we need to do it. For me, there's the web of life. I mean, it's not just us, it's the bees, it's the microorganisms, and what is the impact we're having on the soil. It is that whole contamination and the use of the associated pesticides that then creates those dust storms and you don't get the soil back. So I feel like we're pretty coming together. I'd like to say I feel we need to draw the line. Otherwise, we will not make the decision. The decision will be made on a different level of government. And lastly, I just want to say with respect to the findings, that entire section could come out. That's basically, I tried to leave a lot in here because I do want the public to read what's going on and follow this conversation. I could have gone to like what's going on and follow this conversation. I could have gone to like a stripped down version, but I really wanted to work through, and I hadn't heard any of the other council members. I also agree with many of the things like the word sale and distribution in the prohibition and then taking it out. All of those things need to be cleaned up, the broader net. I just want to quickly go through a couple of things on the bill and how the whole idea of exemptions and the options. In papaya, the one thing what are the different ways, to what extent it's contained? Basically, the one thing that I consider is important is the registration, that we need to know what's going on. We need to know if there are new GMOs used, where it is, just like many of the organic papaya growers have come to me, if I don't have that, if I have no idea where it's going on, I don't know how much money, how many tests I
Are
need
you
to
on the
pass.
amendment?
I'm just, it's all the same, I mean, I'm talking
Okay.
about one
All
part
right.
of the bill.
All right,
Okay.
Thank you.
And let me say, it might be easier if we were to, if I replaced the original bill with one of these communications, at least we would be moving forward. But I wanted to first start with letting everyone speak and just sort of the general, what are the general feelings of each of the members. So I'm really open in terms of what the procedure to use at this point. We can postpone, and I can go and work on it and just do it from this point based on what everyone has said. And that would probably be my inclination, and just really postpone the bill and not move it or vote on it and go from there. But I didn't want to do anything procedurally till everyone sort of weighed in on what their like you said, Zendo, on the farm market one, what everyone's general ideas are and be able to work on it. So I'm going to move to postpone.
Wait, hold on.
What?
Not everybody has spoken.
Okay, I know, okay. I can make the motion.
I'll second.
And my friend Fresh has seconded it.
Sounds like it just happened.
Discussion on the motion to postpone. Mr. Yoshimoto.
On the postponement?
Well, no, that's not on the postponement, is it?
Postponement,
On the postponement only.
How long? What do you mean postponement?
It's August, January's coming.
Yeah. And, yeah, and at least we've got something to work. Okay, so to what date? Okay, I would say, what is the first meeting in September?
September 4th, Wednesday, September 4th.
Yeah, either that or the...
Hold on. Frankly, you do not want to have this discussion on a normal council or committee day. Okay. So, the first open day with nothing is Friday, the 6th of September. It would be here in Hilo.
I think that sounds... Okay, until the 6th of September.
We all need to know everybody's schedule.
Well, that's why I asked everyone to bring their calendars. So everybody have got your calendars?
Could we have a little discussion on the postponement first before we actually narrow down a date?
Postpone until September 6th, subject to input from the other councilmen.
Okay, Mr. Kern.
Thank you. I think we're really close to coming up with something. It might make sense to recess it and just bring it back up, and we could like start right out here and boom, be right into action. We've been reading and listening. I'd like to get to that next step. So I would prefer myself, if we want to postpone it, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But if we recess it, we can be like, work on.
Yeah, I will withdraw my motion to postpone and instead request recess. I think that's a good idea until September 6th.
All right.
Is that okay?
All right, just hold on. You've withdrawn your first motion to postpone. You've now made a motion to recess until September 6th. Was there a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Discussion on the recess to September 6th, which will not allow public testimony.
Madam Chair,
Onishi.
can we get like 5 minutes recess right now? Because I need to get my calendar.
Yes, we're in recess for 5 minutes. We're in recess for 5 minutes. Okay, we're out of recess. All right. Calendars out just for a few minutes. Okay. Mr. Onishi's going to have to leave in just a few minutes, but that doesn't mean the rest of us can't stay. And does somebody want to make a motion to recess? And I have some, let me just comment. If we're not doing all these bizarro things, and I don't know whether we are or not, we could recess to August 22nd, Thursday, August 22nd.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
You're looking to have its own day for this,
Yes.
and we're going to be in recess, and then would you be looking to introduce your stuff or Margaret with her stuff on that same
I
day?
cannot speak for Margaret. I would definitely be introducing mine on that day.
So then we'd actually have to have 2 committees on that day. Could be the same one, because this committee
Yes.
would be in recess. We could still have a public safety mass transit that would be new, that would be open for public testimony, et
Right,
cetera, et
in the
cetera.
regular, on the 20th, in committees, if there was a need to have a public safety meeting, we could have that, a regular meeting without this Bill 79. I'm suggesting the 22nd for Bill 79.
As far as-
Or if we think, put it on late in the day, we could do it on the 20th.
I just don't think at this stage, if we're going to recess it, that we need a whole, its own day, because we would have come up with something a little, a couple hours of discussion,
Okay.
and then whatever it is, if it's something substantial to this, we would want to have it public
Agenda,
testimony. You know what I mean? So we can with new
All right,
content.
so you would want it on the 20th. You're recommending the 20th.
That's what I'm just saying. I don't think we need a whole day if we're just recessing
you're
Bill
right.
79.
I think you're right. Mr. Yoshimoto,
I would rather do it on the,
hang on. Mr. Yoshimoto, if we put this committee, which is in recess now, in recess again, and bring it back on the 20th of August, we would need to breach the deadline. Are you willing to do that?
well,
That doesn't really give Ms. Willie
I don't-
much time either.
You don't have time to do your committees,
right.
I mean, your
I don't
community
want
work.
it, right. I think
Okay.
Friday, September 6th.
Or what about September 4th?
September 4th, is that committee? and-
That's a normal
Okay.
committee day. September 4th?
Yeah.
Okay, just keep that in mind till we go on with the discussion. All right, we're out of recess, we obviously are out of recess, because I already said that. So, let's start the discussion again, Ms. Willie.
First, I just want to say I appreciate all of the council members working with this, and I think I think everyone on this council is really trying to do what is right and what is Pono, and we have different input, and I just want to stress the whole aloha aina and aloha to the people, and that we all really, look around to who's with you, and people keep saying to me, this is divisive, and we've got these people here and these there. Again, I just want to stress, I think this is a really important dialogue. I mean, this is what being an adult's all about. And I want to say also, I'm happy to meet with anyone and move this forward, and I certainly see so many things that can be different, and I hope the public will stay involved and be educated and not see recessing this at somehow trying to take it away from the public. We want you to continue to be with us. I really think that this is what democracy is all about. So I just want to say I'm glad for what we're doing, and I feel we're all becoming more knowledgeable. And food is ultimately so critical, and to learn how to, when we say about sustainability, what we really want is, though, safe, nutritious food where we're protecting the land at the same time, and not just for the moment, or not just for us and what is the shortcut. And that, so I'm really open. Again, I would like to either go forward and recess till the 4th or till the 6th, whichever is the persuasion of. I'm open either way, and I really would rather not have it be within the next 2 weeks, Madam Chair, if that's all right with you.
Thank you. Mr. Yoshimoto?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, as to the procedural scheduling, I think if we're going to entertain any new amendment or any new legislation, we're going to have to take public testimony, because that's what's required. So we're going to have to need, I think, another day, because that's the next step. Otherwise, we're just going to be stuck on Bill 79 as is. So,
Yeah,
so September 6th, I guess, is, probably, well, I don't know what.
Point of point of inquiry, I guess. If we want public testimony on an amendment that Ms. Willie would make, we would not want to recess it then. Because if we come back in from recess on Bill 79 and there's an amendment that's made where we would vote on the amendment, we'd accept it or not, and then we'd either then postpone it to keep it in committee and then have public testimony on it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the other challenge, though, if we postpone it now, the testimony is, the amendment wouldn't be introduced yet, right? So it'd be being introduced at that time, and it still would take us voting on it to have that become part of the bill to then actually get into the real public testimony part of it. Do you know what I mean? So that way, if we recessed it and there was an amendment that was made that was agreeable or whatever it was, then we would potentially just postpone it for 2 weeks, and then public testimony could come in and give public testimony, but that would be on new content. My whole feeling is, if we're going to go back for public testimony, let's have it on new content.
Right. So, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
So we would agendize the amendment. Once Ms. Willie figures out which amendment she wants to put forward, then she has to commit to it, then we agendize it. And I think isn't that what she did before? She had yeah. So you're right. I mean, either way is, we need to be consistent, so.
All right, so let
Madam
me see
Chair.
if Mr. Illock.
Now,
Mr.
if we
Illock.
do recess, we're assuming that, if we do recess, we're assuming that this original bill, it won't be substantial, that amendment, because we're looking for, if we are supposed to have any substantial amendment, we want public testimony. That's what we're trying to say. Now, right now, we're going off the assumption, if we recess, that there won't be a substantial amendment, but there is going to be a substantial amendment, period. So we either have to withdraw this bill, or if we postpone it, it still has to pass or die, or indefinitely postponed. I'm just saying, it has to somehow go away, whether it be withdrawn, killed, passed. I'm just saying, I'm just stating out the facts. Now, we already came to an agreement that there will be a substantial amendment, and that's going to be created by Councilmember Willie. So we have to decide what we're going to do with Bill 79.
Mr. Onishi.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, I know it's going to be very confusing, but this is to what I think it should be done. Okay, like we said, okay, she's going to call a recess. She's going to go meet with the players, right, with the people involved. Then she's going to come back with the amendments from the working group or from the players. Now, on the 6th, when we meet, we're not going to be able to really know what it is unless they finish it real early. But knowing it might take to like the last minute or the last hour, and so once we come back into committee from recess, then I would suggest that we postpone so that the public can see the amendments. We can see the amendments, and then maybe we can postpone it to like September 11th or something like that, like a couple days later. So people can look it over. We can come back to committee. We can have testimony from the public saying how they feel about her amendments that going to change Bill 79, right? And then we move forward from there. I mean, but it seems like complicated because you're going to have to recess and then postpone and so forth. But for the public, on that day when we meet on the 6th, it's going to only last like maybe 5 minutes because we're going to get into the committee, then we're going to make the motion to postpone till whatever date, and then we go in from there.
Okay. Can I speak now?
Ms. Willie.
What if I withdraw and
I will
submit-
kill you. I will kill you.
Okay, and resubmit. Okay, I just want to get out all the options here. I'm just saying, otherwise, I am fine with the way that Councilmember Onishi said. I just feel, I don't want people to feel, okay, Margaret, she's adding on this and this layer, and I want the communication out there. I want this discussion not...
Ms. Willie.
Okay, I want to just finish my sentence. I want it to be where we get this out, and people can see what it is, okay? So the way you said it is fine with me. If I withdraw it and resubmit it as a new bill,
Ms. Willie,
I'm fine, okay?
you do not own this bill anymore.
I don't own it, so I'm not trying.
You cannot withdraw this bill.
There's no amendment.
The reason I believe that you cannot withdraw this bill is we've had how many hours of testimony from the public, and she has submitted things. We haven't amended it, it's true. But it seems to me this would be a tremendous disservice to the public to withdraw this at this time. That's just, I don't know if that's correct.
I don't think it's ever a disservice to withdraw poorly written legislation and submit it
I
with
agree with
something
that.
new.
Okay, I'd like to call, can I call?
Yes.
Margaret Matsunaga up, and,
Oh, boy, she...
oh, Kathy Garson is here?
Oh, good. Because
Kathy,
we're having
and
still a...
let me just say, I don't see this as a disservice. We are moving forward. We're just trying to procedurally figure out what the best way it is. I am not dropping this, okay? We are committed, and we recognize the problem, and we're trying to figure out how we all work to do something, prevent problems.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. I mean...
Okay, you're good.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Is
Ms.
Kathy's
Garson,
coming up?
Thank you, Ms. Garson.
Okay.
Ms. Garson, I am concerned that with this many days of testimony and people attending, that if we withdraw the bill rather than amend it or kill it, whatever is going to come, that we are doing a disservice to the public in some way. I don't know what, I thought this would, I didn't think she had the right to withdraw it at this point. I need your assistance.
Okay, Catherine Carson, Assistant Corporation Counsel. Pursuant to your rules, Rule 14, number 2, any motion may be withdrawn by the member making the motion without consent of the corresponding second anytime before a decision or amendment. So if you...
So she does own the bill. I stand corrected. Ms. Willie? You own the bill. Thank you, Ms. Garson. Ms. Willie? Okay.
Yes.
You own the bill. You can withdraw it if you choose.
If anyone wants to say anything first, I just want to, once I withdraw, let's withdraw. I'm going, okay?
I know.
So, I'm going to withdraw the bill at this time. And based on all the brilliance of everyone here, move forward with a new draft where it's not just adding one more layer onto what we have. And thank you.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
All opposed? We're adjourned. All in favor of adjournment? Aye. All opposed? We're adjourned.
Oh my God. Yeah, I predicted that too. I told you if it's not going well, she'll withdraw it. I told you that would happen. I told them all that would happen. All right, I gotta go get a picture of them.
Glad you made it. Is that what's going on?
She's a lawyer.
It's kind of funny to see what's going on now with these guys. Whatever I read, I guess you didn't catch it, but somebody was talking about how he doesn't just nothing but a response and hanging him up. Promise this, promise that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and it's a stupid
I'm sorry.
Who was our buddy, our engineer? What kept saying whether it's better to start somewhere else, but couldn't Ray. We like Ray. Remember Ray? I was working with the system and then he pulled back. That's right. But I just ain't gonna deal with dishonest people, man. I mean, I got my rules. Anyone cheaper than me or more dishonest than I am, nah, no good. I ain't gonna stand up. To have him in the mix, all that has to do. He said something.
Okay, then.
He was so far off of the state legislation that he started saying he recommended.
Totally expected that. I told you all that if this is not going well, we shall withdraw it.
I was happy not to have to
If this gets voted down, it is dead for 2 years. You cannot reintroduce any kind of GMO legislation. So, I'll turn it around.
Basically, everyone's recognizing
Hi,
what they put out there just doesn't work.
Okay, so if they vote it down, it's done. We don't get to have a GMO conversation this term. This is a 2-year term. They are only 8 months into their 2-year term. So we have to pass this bill in any amended form or withdraw it. If they vote it down, we're done. So that's why she withdrew. To be honest, I think she should have just kept the bill 79.
I gotta get somebody wearing green.
Uh-oh. Go, Bob, go! No! Bob, go!
I can't.
Why do they call
Bob, we need, Hawaii News Now needs, do Chandel.
Who's good here?
Oh, wait. Oh, wait, no, don't
I
do
used to be able to
her.
do it. I can't do it.
She's one of the bad guys. She's not a green person. Tell him she's not. Anyway, okay, sorry. The news is here. Lots of news. Okay, so anyway, that's what happened. She withdrew it. She will write another bill and introduce it, I promise you. And Brenda will not kill her because she won't. Brenda's smart. She will write a new bill. It will be cleaner and we'll continue where this left off. Unfortunately, it starts a whole new string of documents too. If she had kept the bill, ransacked the entire thing out, and then inserted new language, that would have been kosher. But that's not what we're going to do. We're going to dump it and start over. So, but I am very confident that she will start over. I am confident that that Brenda will hear it in her committee. She's frustrated, but it's not, there's a lot of water under the bridge. It's not dead. And we will come back and we will have a bill. Gosh, I think we're up to 100 now already. It's going to be Bill 100 and something. And we will let you all know when that's agendized. And I don't know. Any questions out there? What else do you need to know? They're all here. Look at it. Let me not spill my coffee. They are. Oh my goodness, look at the gathering up at the table.
I believe that GMO is implemented safely and reliably tested plants that exist. There's a lot of science.
Told you she was not green shirt. He wanted a green shirt and he picks up a lady with not a green shirt. Uncool. Uncool. Okay.
It's not well written. I don't think
Are you
there's anything
predicted all of it?
really going on this island.
Yeah.
Safety and food science. positively, and that's really what.
Told you, I know, everybody was so excited for today.
It's GMO, but it also.
Tried to explain that it's not going to be exciting. But what I'd really like to do is create a bunch of background noise right now while the GMO lady gets interviewed for TV. Yeah?
That's a Earth First kind of thing, so I'll leave that to you.
Hello, you're helping me right now.
I'm a co-conspirator.
What's wrong with you? He wanted a green shirt person.
I know, but I would have done it if I would have done it if I could have. Of course you. I can't do it well enough. Bob's good on this. Bob's
the GMO guy.
No, you can't. The people keep pushing me off. Is just wasting my time. I need somebody who will talk.
Yeah, I'll get you one. Hold on. Blake, we need a green shirt TV interview immediately. He's not going to ask anybody else.
Can you? I need somebody on the green side.
Here you go. Here's your man.
No problem.
There we go. Handled. Handled. Okay, let's just set you down for a minute and go get the camera. Where's my camera?
What other states have done is say,
We're asking. You can step back.
just say no, and then if you want to.
Excuse me.
And they work what the purpose has been, we don't have any money.
I'm afraid to play shy around the block.
So in other words, what I did was, I basically wrote it so that you don't have to have any rules.
I think we just need to see which one see
I want to keep it simple.
your comment. The longer.
What do you have now? What size?
Yes,
I got some.
it's really good what she did. She had
I just want to say, I didn't say this point I know that. I just, yeah, no, I know that. I know that. I just feel when it comes to this, let's get it over time down at the hotel.
So we end up putting more money into, we're not
Yeah, right, and I know that. I know, but what I'm saying
and what he said is, if you start the registration here, at least he would know how close other things are, what his risk is. Because if one inspector comes in and knocks him out, and one crop has any GMO, I think then it gets days and where you have expert lawyers on the other side. So I think it's balancing. We all really want to do it in a fair way.
I just want to.
Yeah, so I just think that, but I'm having trouble doing the layers of pulling away and adding all of it. I think this is fantastic.
It wouldn't be allowed.
I mean, and that's why I wanted to make that point. We are charting our future on this island. Judy over there, Todd over here. I want home rule. I want, even if the decision is everything market wants, that we decide how we're doing it. And I think you have people who's trying to say, what is the fair, how do we do this in a more fair way?
All right, well, I gotta make that on. You go.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Is this yours? No, I don't know. It's cute though. I'll take it.
No, I didn't. What I said back here is, you know,
Was it your mic? It's because there was a mic. Somebody took the mic and left the
That's what I said. I didn't mean that. You can say whatever you want.
TV guy. There you go. I know me. I'm out of here.
And you can say.
Thank you.
And you have the right to say what you want to say. I just said that I believe it's in our council chamber.
Me too. We're going to be clearing the console. Is this yours? It is.
What if I could, what if I was just on the phone? I just want to make sure everyone listen.
I don't have your contact. At a minimum, what I'd like to do. We'll find a better one. Right. I just want to help facilitate
Hey, Greg. We've had longer ones, right? Greg, we've had longer ones.
Can you wait a couple minutes? Because David and I double work. Yes, double work. So wait, you're all right. I just want a picture of you with your books. Oh, shit, get out of the way. I'm already ready.
Yeah, with the books, with the books. Okay, wait a second. Wait.
Stage it.
Well, I've got to have this is mine.
Oh, there you go, yeah.
Yeah, right.
But even she's tearing it up in here, She just wanted to. There you go, yeah. Okay. Now you got it now.
Okay.
All right. If you don't have a YouTube, if you don't have a YouTube account now, you will.
It is a council thing now, you know, just like Drew says, Margaret, I told my staff, I said, I think I have to have a moratorium on no more do any more bills for a while. Because I can't even do any bills, it's all. I know.
The thing is, we gotta set up time sheets. Eric? No, because I find out the first one was good. The first one was good. With their arms up.
Yes.
That one.
I like it too. That one, her eyes are closed. I can't use it, her eyes are closed. That's why I take 10 pictures. Because people, they talk and their mouth goes
There's also
funny.
one where she's pointing to the red. There you go. That one, that's the best, because she's pointing to the red. Yeah.
Still, it would be relevant to a new bill too. I mean, my thing is,
What? You expected answers? What's wrong with you?
I'm not even close.
I'm so sore. Oh my God, get off.
Yeah, right.
That's exactly that. Oh my goodness, did they hear that? They heard that, you know. You just interneted that.
Oh, no.
Okay, bye y'all. Okay, so we're waiting for a new bill.
There's a guy advertising on 245 watt panels. You saw that. He says
You couldn't erase that? That went over?
220 a piece.
Oh, no, it's all live, baby. There's no erasing.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Withdrawn, I can't spell. Withdrawn. So when people come here and they know what happened. Okay. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Carrie. This is Occupy Hilo Media. You're watching Occupy Hilo on live stream. Follow me on Twitter at Occupy Media. OCCHILOMEDIA. Occupy Hilo Media. And, oh, the feed is down and the chat is working. Okay, good to know. Okay.
It is, but I don't want
We're past.
to think that it's big.
Okay.
This is a great information.
All right, bye, y'all.